Good.
The Blendon Township Board of Trustees Special Trustee Work Session is called to order at 5:30 p.m. You may remain seated for a moment of reflection or stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustee Achen?
Here.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
Trustee Siamaco?
Present.
Thank you all for being here tonight at this special trustee work session. The purpose of tonight is not to pass anything, it's not to vote on anything, it is to get feedback from the community, for all of us to be able to talk together about the possibility of creating a managed natural landscape home rule resolution. That's all that tonight is about. For me personally, I want this to be about encouraging native plantings and pollinator gardens and rain gardens and all the things that will help our environment. This is not to discourage it. So we want everyone's feedback. There's going to be plenty of time for you to get up and ask questions or speak or what have you. Before we get into all that though, if you happen to grab this off of the table here, we have a very rough draft of a proposal for a managed natural landscape plan. And what I'd like to do is just read through that with you, and then we can all kind of discuss each item as we go through it. And again, there will be time for everybody to ask questions and give feedback on this. Starting with the very beginning with the definition, a managed natural landscape is a planned planting of native or beneficial plants, such as wildflowers, grasses, shrubs, or pollinator habitat, intentionally cultivated to support wildlife, soil health, or ecological diversity. Managed natural landscapes may replace traditional turf grass in part or all of a yard. Any discussion here at this table or any of these tables up here on just that first part?
Yeah, I think all of a yard is where we may run into issues with the general public. As you know, I sent you pictures of my managed landscape, and it's pretty large, but it's on 48 acres, so it doesn't appear as large. But if you do front and rear yards, that's where we have to worry about the rest of the people who are not involved in this complaining.
Go tell me what you think they would be complaining about.
And I'm sure the zoning, and Pat, you've received many complaints over the years, and we've seen them come in. You guys haven't been through a full cycle yet to see the complaints coming in right around this time of year through September, with grounds being unkept or what people feel to be unkept. So it's going to be education.
Absolutely.
It takes a lot of education.
I agree 100% with that, because like you said, the word unkept, that's a really good word, and I've heard people say it, because with a natural landscape, there is definitely going to be that period of time, and Tim, you're going to be able to speak to this so much more than I will, though, that it doesn't look great. It looks like all your stuff is falling down and it's dead and everything, but it's life. It's not a green turf grass covered with chemicals, with short little shallow roots, not giving anything back to the soil. It's bringing life, and it's just in that process. It's waiting for spring to wake up and show you all the beauty that is there. It's just underneath some of the dead stuff.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. So I'm good with complaints. I mean, that's kind of what we're here for.
There are going to be complaints regardless. So I mean, it's one way or another. As far as all of the yard, I mean, it really comes down to that intentionality, right? I mean, it's the cues of care that are commonly referenced in native gardening circles. So those are the important things. But Pat, you were getting ready to say something.
No, I was just going to say some of the complaint part, what have you, I think is when you get down to the next couple bullets, some of that can be addressed.
Absolutely.
Just from what I read.
Yep. All right, let's do that then. Let's keep on going. Part 2, registration. Residents who wish to establish a managed natural landscape shall submit a simple notification form to the township that includes property address, approximate location of the natural landscape area, a short description of the planting, such as native pollinator garden, wildflower meadow, etc. No fees, classes, certifications, or permits are required. Registration simply ensures the township understands the intent of the landscape. And I think this is what Pat is referring to as we get down further in this. By doing a simple registration, that will do a lot for Eric and Jeff. If you're getting complaints about a yard, you'd be able to look and see, hey, this person registered that they're doing this on their property. And you can tell the complainant, and you can even go and check it out if you need to, but you'll just have a better idea of what's going on, and you'll be able to share that information.
I think it helps anyone who is interested in doing a native or natural or biodiverse garden to get education about what it is. When I spoke with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and 2 botanists, they made some really good points. You don't know what's invasive unless you take the classes. And they also said what's invasive one year may not be invasive the next, and vice versa. So if we just have a free-for-all out there, we don't know if what grows in one person's yard is invasive and then it spreads to 2 or 3 other yards. And when you're in a smaller community or smaller lots, being, let's say, a 1/6 to 1/4 of an acre, that can overtake a yard really fast.
I think that's, if we keep going through here too, you'll see that that's part of it too, is making sure that you don't have those invasive and noxious weeds. And like you said, that is education, but I don't necessarily agree that the education has to be a formalized education. There's so much you can do online.
Oh, it can be an online course,
Yeah,
I agree.
things like that. Even just watching YouTube videos, talking to your neighbors and finding stuff out. There's a ton of that they can do. But yeah, I agree. If we could offer free classes to people who want to come here and do
That
that,
would be
I would
good.
love to do that.
That would be good.
amazing. And do that, I don't know, like spring and fall or whatever makes the most sense.
Facebook is probably the most common educator for people trying to get into this. I mean, it's people asking people. And
Yeah.
it's all trial and error too. My wife can speak to that
Yeah.
much more greatly. I mean, there's certain plants that just don't take after 2 and 3 and 4 seasons, but there's some that will work just fine. But it's trial and error, so you don't know what works in your space until you're actually in it. But yeah, I mean, noxious weeds and invasive species, there are lists. I mean, those are
There's a list up there if y'all didn't grab one.
easy to quickly identify, I guess, between plant apps
Google
and
Lens.
documentation. So I mean, those are less of a concern, just because, again, if you're caring for the space, those aren't going to have the opportunity to distribute themselves other places, at least, well managed,
Right.
which is part of this as well. So
And like what you said, if you're caring for the space, and that people who are going to do this, in my opinion, who are taking the time to want to give back to the environment and beautify their yard with this, they're taking the time to learn. They're going to care. This isn't people who are just saying, we're just going to throw some stuff in the ground because they said we could all of a sudden. So, yeah, they're doing this for a purpose.
the hope, right?
Yeah, we hope. But it's not those people that you worry about either. It's the people who see a yard and they don't understand that this is natural. This is something we're trying to create. They just think it's an unkept yard, so they don't mow their yard. That's the problem that we run into, which you will see this year. It's hard to explain unless you've been through it. This will be my 3rd year. So I hear the complaints come in, and the first one that we had was where I tried to start this back in 2024, and the people whose yard I think where this all came about, because I saw their yard and I saw what they were trying to do and I understand their story, and we tried to create, and I did a lot of research, we tried to create a good environment for anyone who wants to do it, yet still be okay for those people who don't want to do it. And a way to explain to them if they called in to complain, this is what's happening, this is what they're doing. But if it's, if there's no managed landscape, which I know we're going to be getting to, others don't understand. And it's hard to educate the masses when they don't understand.
Yeah, I guess, we probably have a big task in front of us, but at the end of the day, it's better for everybody. The more people that do this, it's better for the humans and the wildlife and nature in general. Yeah, so, I'll go with a few more complaints.
The I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
this is a work session, I'm allowed to jump in.
Yeah.
The registration piece is something that some folks were really upset about last time, and I know there was other things about it, I won't go down that path, but there has to be something for us, Eric, my team, to say, we got a complaint about 1, 2, 3 ABCs, well, they're on the list, and we can tell that complainant, this is why, this is
Right.
it, this is their intention, and so forth. And the people that don't wanna cut their grass aren't going to drive to our office and print that form off and fill that out. That's why, from the very beginning, we always said, there has to be some skin in the game, so to speak, if you're going to go down this path. Otherwise, we will get into a situation where people just go, well, Johnny doesn't cut his, I'm not cutting mine.
Yeah.
And so, but now, if there is a registration, people are at least telling us this is what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, or we have accomplished, and that helps us a lot, because now we have a list.
Yeah.
5, 10, 20, 30, you're on the list, and we can communicate that. Without that, we don't have any way of, for lack of better terms, enforcement of what is in the code today.
Absolutely.
So,
So this does work. This works for you, Eric. This type of registration, you just have a list of the addresses, you know.
It seems like it would just be nice to know what the plan is, I guess.
Well, and
I
that,
just
it
wanna
does,
make sure that,
yeah, a short description of the planting, you know, and approximate location of it.
It's really hard to plan, right? I mean, like, you will have plants that will take, you have plants that won't take, you have a bed that will change in size, may get larger or smaller. The unfortunate thing, is it's trial and error, right? So it's really hard to just say from day one, this is how I expect this to look. Now, I understand obviously saying front, side, back, whatever. I think the real problem is front, right? I mean, that's where you're gonna get your complaints for the most part. But I mean, I understand registration. To me, after your first year, do you really need to register? And unless you're not keeping your space, it shouldn't look the same way it might that first year. I mean, your first year growing in a native landscape setting, if you're not trimming the way, you know, if you're not turning dirt and trimming that first year, the only year that it's gonna look like that is your first year. You're gonna have some cues for care because you're gonna take out your noxious things that first year anyway. And then beyond that, you're caring for the plants that you saw sprout up that first year anyway. So I mean, it's kind of a moot point after the first time, but if your address is on a list, yeah, it's easy to go back to and just say, yeah, they do this in this space, we know that. And that, again, I think that space is gonna evolve. It might be larger the second year because you did have seed distribution from the plants that you planted year 1 to, I mean, it's gonna take a couple years to take, so. But by year 3, you'll have some new plantings that you didn't expect to be there. Your design and everything is really gonna change.
That is true.
Yeah.
Mine has.
Yeah.
Has evolved.
All right, let's move on. Number 3, maintenance standards. To distinguish intentional plantings from neglected yards, managed natural landscapes must meet the following basic standards. The area must show intentional cultivation or design by plant groupings, mulched borders, paths, edging, or a mowed border, etc. Property edges adjacent to sidewalks, streets, or neighboring yards must be maintained. Mowed strip, edging, or border recommended. Plants must not obstruct sidewalks, street signs, or visibility at intersections or driveways. And invasive or noxious weeds as defined by state law must be controlled. Any discussion on any of that?
That's all good.
No, I have my own,
Straightforward?
I have my own thing and it's very close to that, almost
Okay.
exactly, so.
All right, number 4, height exemption. Areas registered as managed and natural landscapes are exempt from the township's 8-inch grass height restriction. This exemption only applies to the designated natural landscape area.
That makes
Sound good
sense.
on that? Right. Number 5, signage. Residents may place a small educational sign identifying the area as a pollinator habitat, native plant garden, or managed natural landscape. Signage is optional but encouraged.
Trustee Noble, if I may.
Yeah.
So the one question I have on this is making
sure that the signage language is consistent with your zoning resolution. And
Okay.
I know you have signage restrictions. I would suspect that what you're going for is a small sign, a de minimis sign, but still, that's
Okay.
just one thing that we'll need to confirm, just to
Gotcha,
make sure.
okay.
And again,
Any sign size.
exactly, and if there is a problem with respect to the zoning resolution, that's something that can be amended to make clear that this type of sign would not be a violation.
All right. Moving on to enforcement, number 6, the township may request maintenance if a property shows clear signs of neglect rather than intentional cultivation. Indicators of neglect may include unmanaged invasive weeds, complete lack of intentional planting or design, obstruction of public areas. Before any enforcement action, the township will attempt communication with the resident to resolve the issue.
I personally think you take that part out.
Well,
That's because that's assuming my team's not doing that today. And they communicate with everybody before anything happens, so just so we know. And just making sure.
Yeah, and we know that, and I hope everybody there does know that, but it's still good to tell people that, just so. Number 7, encouragement,
Wait,
oh, sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
just another
Yeah.
question. And I don't know if this is a concern, I guess my thought would be, in terms of sightlines, so if someone has a corner lot, and, making sure that people driving and turning, there's not obstruction, perhaps including in addition to obstruction of public areas or sightlines, something to that effect.
Is that covered under number 3, maintenance standards, the visibility at intersections or
Visibility.
driveways?
It is.
Okay.
Never mind then,
All right.
yep.
You're good with that? Moving on. Lastly, nope.
I have to go back to the signage.
Yep.
She brought that up. So there is a permitting process for signs. So we were gonna look at, are we gonna waive that for a pollinator sign or a?
I would say
Maybe we
yes
need to
to
look at
that.
Probably put a size, waive it at a specific size.
So, yeah, my question on that would be, so there's a property that has a big sign, right? And they came to us, they paid a fee for that sign, and so forth. And then there's some folks in their mulch beds just have little signs telling people what they are, pointing their fingers anyway. I think that looks fine too. But I think that's where it's like, this is a permitted sign. It's 8 by whatever, and it's in the middle of my yard, and it talks about it. That's where I think Eric's coming with, right? Not just the cardboard signs that say pollinators.
Not plant markers.
Yeah, plant, okay.
No, but we
Yeah.
should still be specific.
Yeah, we need to come up with a
We
size,
need to
that's what I'm
have-
saying, we gotta have a size, because, if there's no sizes, then he has to have some guidance, because people will ask about signs.
That
But
should
it
be
could
easy.
be from this side to this side, or whatever.
Just come up with some measurements. Perfect.
Absolutely. Lastly, number 7, encouragement and education. The township encourages residents to support pollinators and native plants through voluntary educational resources. Hopefully, we'll be offering some of those. Community outreach, partnerships with local conservation groups. Participation is voluntary, though, and no certifications are required.
I still go back to education. I think whether it's somebody that wants to have a natural garden or somebody who doesn't want to have a natural garden, there should be education.
Yeah, let's do that, for sure. Let's get it on the books, get some people here. You can just call some friends or Leah and call some friends, or some of the friends out here can just come teach some classes for us. Yeah, so I think we would be there. All right, any other discussion on this from anybody up here before we open it up to any comments, questions out there? All right, if you do have a comment or question, please come to the podium. State your name, state your address if you want to, and speak as clearly and loudly as possible so those at home can hear.
You think they can hear me from here?
You've got about 5 minutes. I'm not gonna cut you off if you're right in the middle of a sentence, but, somewhere around 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Ron Dosey, and I reside in Athens County. I help Alice with her natural landscape in Glenn Township. I'm Covens Road. And I just have a comment about, kind of a question comment. Ever since I've been going to these hearings, I hear comments about this person complains and that person complains. I just wonder if in the police department, people complained about tickets, like they get tickets at intersections. Like, do you decide not to give tickets because people complain? I mean, to me, this isn't a popularity contest. You know, certain people believe in their hearts, and it's scientifically proven, that their natural landscapes are better for the environment and better for society and better for pollinators and better for our living than European grasses, which is when people cut grasses. They're foreign. They were brought in from Europe. They aren't the same as our native grasses, like, you know, amber waves of grain are not them, right? So I can probably get a lot of people to complain about turf. In fact, there's already people all over the world doing it, saying that it's making heat islands and causing environmental damage. So I get a whole lot of people to complain about turf grass. Everyone's turf grass. And why aren't people doing natives? It seems to be rather ridiculous to even exercise the thought that you use public comment in such a way, because all you're doing is inviting a contest of complaints instead of making sense. The second thing is regarding education. I see this as a bit of a double standard the way I'm hearing it, because Alice has a neighbor that has one of the most obnoxious trees, calorie pears, like tons of it. Like she just pulled out like 150 seedlings. She has to work her butt off to take care of the damage coming from her property, from seeds blowing in. So why don't we have the education of a property owner who has invasive species growing, like 40 feet tall, 60 feet tall, hundreds of them, with all their seeds blowing into our property and our neighbor's property that have to deal with that? Where's the education for them? Just common people letting obnoxious and invasive species, some of which are on the list, grow. They have an exception, or maybe someone's looking the other way. I don't know, but it's happening and has happened for the last 3 years that I've experienced it. Yet there's sensitivity on people with native to make sure that they aren't working with native, or not working with invasive species and how that works. So if you're gonna want to regulate, have people take some course, I'd say don't just stop it with people doing the native. Like if someone can tell that their property, that their neighbor is having seeds from their invasive plants growing in, maybe they should be taking the course too, if you want to be fair about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, yeah. And I do want to just, to your thing, we're not talking about regulating education. That's the thing. It would be voluntary education. But I'm with you on that.
Encourage.
Yeah. Encourage.
But yes, I think more education all the way around.
Right, yeah. It does suck
Great.
that you have to tell the people that just now the movement is getting stronger and stronger, and we're realizing why we need all the native plantings and how we are killing the earth. And it's still being done on a really large mainstream basis. So I am with you 100% on that, but just any education that we can offer at all, I think is great. But
Can I comment?
voluntary.
I'm sorry, can I make a comment,
Yeah,
Ron?
yeah.
Ron, that's your first example about, like, that's what this is for, because today, me and my team are charged to
Enforce the zoning code.
enforce what's in the code today. And this isn't in our home rule resolution or code, so this is that step you're asking for. This is that step to separate that and say, these people are allowed to do this. If they don't do this, we can still ask them to cut the grass because they're not intentionally doing this. We don't have that today. So that's what this is doing on a positive towards your first example there.
And you were ground zero, Ron, me coming to your property, or Alice's. But that's where all of this started. We didn't have it, and neither did anybody else. I mean, when I called dozens of cities, villages, townships, state regulators to find out what they were doing, they were all in the experimental stage when this all started. So we were trying to create a zoning ordinance that would help allow this. That's where all this came about.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Come on up.
Stamco 5816 Prize Place. This is gonna seem a little odd because I like pollinator gardens, but I'm scared. And the reason why I'm scared is because I did 21 years of military, and if somebody can manipulate the system, they will manipulate the system. So my concerns are more on the lines of the person who now has dandelions and 12 inches of regular grass telling me that it's a pollinator garden. We're feeding the bees. I don't want to see that. Me personally, I understand it's feeding the bees, but I think there's a better way. And I guarantee you, if you're saying, okay, you can have a sign, you've got to put restrictions, or we're going to have a sign as big as this building in somebody's yard in neon lights. So that would probably need to be clarified. And I just want to say, it doesn't matter what you come up with, somebody's not going to be happy. So just do the best you can. It's a
Yes, we
learning
know.
curve. Okay, it's a learning curve. for
We're
all of us.
trying.
I do like the education portion. I would attend free classes, even the classes that the gentleman brought up, because I do battle with stuff growing in my backyard from other people's trees, and classes, you know, on how I can better keep control of my situation, you know, my area, not necessarily theirs, would be great. That's it. See you tomorrow.
Alice, come on up.
Football person. Hi, Alice Bowler, 7250 Cottage Road. There was some discussion online of like having a resolution versus not having one. There were people who were like, oh, this blew up last time, like let's just leave it alone. And I just wanted to remind people what Pat said, which is like, I mean, I currently still have an active nuisance violation against my, like, under the law, Pat and team could just come on and spend you guys' money and hire mowers and mow down all my stuff and then put a lien on my house and pay you back. That could happen tomorrow without something. So I'm in favor of what you're doing, and I appreciate all the time that's been taken over a couple of years to get to this point, and I really like this one, and I think it's great. And I don't really have any, other than what I've already shared with you about making sure that what's in the International Property Maintenance Code, which our zoning code refers to, like where that might conflict with this, making sure that it's clear which thing takes precedence, and that I don't register my yard and then it's like, oh yeah, but IPMC says that it has to be cultivated, which technically, if you look up cultivated, it could mean that it has, like, the soil has to be turned, which is not how you do native plants, because you actually ruin them every year by screwing up their roots. So just making sure that's good. And then I wanted to mention, if people are interested in like how this movement is really gaining steam, there's a Facebook group called Homegrown National Parks, which is based on the idea that if all of us with private lawns put all of our lawns together, it would be more land than the national parks in the United States. We can make more of a difference as individual people. And there's like if you're a nerd on Reddit like I am, there's r/no-lawns. So there's just like a lot of people out there who are getting interested, and they're like, hey, how can I do this? How can I not have basically a green mat that I spray chemicals on and mow every week, and how can I do something that makes a difference? And then just wanted to say that I really want to hear what everyone has to say, and also there's a meeting in Northland where I'm receiving an award, and so I'm going to that shortly. So I'm going to stay as long as I can, but I also get to go to that. So thank you everybody for your hard work, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice.
Alice, what was the name of that again? Homegrown natural?
Homegrown natural.
National parks. It's like a national park, only it's all of our laws.
There's a Facebook page out.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Oh, please come up.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name's Joe Garrick. I'm 3783 Mexico Avenue. I was one of the pitchfork and torch people last fall that was here on record attendance. And I think what got me activated was the lack of communication as to why this is necessary. Honestly, I just heard what would have satisfied me back then from one of our residents as to why. In her case, it actually protects her from what's currently on the books. Nobody ever communicated why what was currently on the books was not good enough. You alluded to it, but there was not the communication. I think something like today is a very important step forward in that direction. With that being said, I'm a person that I like the traditional grass picket fence type thing. My wife, on the other hand, is the complete opposite of that. She would turn our yard into the butterfly haven of the Midwest. What I would say is, as you consider this proposal, understand that invasive species are already in our community. I had neighbors that unexpectedly moved because of a job opportunity to Texas. They left their house basically abandoned for 2 months while it was being sold. Nobody maintained that yard, and that was a year and a half ago, and I'm still fighting, trying to get my yard, what would be considered a manicured yard, back to where it was before they moved, because they basically just let it go fallow. So we can't use the threat of noxious weeds and stuff like that against the people who are trying to do native, when the folks who are keeping manicured yards are also going the other direction. And I think that was alluded to with the tree and the seedlings. When we're talking about education, man, when I was here in the fall, when we were all activated, there was a lot of really knowledgeable people in this community. And I think leveraging that would be wise. Start some kind of native plant club. It could meet here once a month. Anybody who might not be into going to an expert might be willing to engage with a neighbor. So what I would say is, I think as you go forward with this, making sure that you communicate the hows and whys are going to be very important, because we do have a very vocal online media community that, you know, have their torches and pitchforks ready. So, thank you.
Yes, please come on up. Before you get started, I do just want to, one thing that you said too, about neighbors, educating neighbors. If you have not yet applied for the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, please do so. That would be a perfect subcommittee to be underneath that. So we could have native gardeners coming in, and Tim, that would be a great one for you to be in charge
To
of.
pop into.
Yeah. All right, sorry, come on in.
My name is Kathy Wicks, and I live at 2370 Montford Road West. I have been interested in pollinator gardens. Last year I took it was through the Franklin Soil and Water Rain Garden. I'm a candidate for a Master Rain Gardener certification. So I think that's something that would blend really well to our community, and I'd like to be part of whatever that is. But you know, what the group that you're talking about. Yeah. And also thinking about getting like a certification or registration or whatever. Maybe the Franklin Soil and Water Conservation District, you know, maybe they could give us a little sign, and that could be the registration or something, just to keep it regulated according to some standards. Maybe that would be something that, you know, would satisfy both sides.
And that was something they did agree to do, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and the Franklin County Soil and Water, because I had both of them out, and their chief botanists, and they did mention, do you remember that, Pat? They said they'd be willing to work with us on signs, and they'll come out and look at your gardens. They would do it for free and tell you what might be noxious, what isn't noxious, and they're very helpful.
Yeah. They also have the community backyards program, and once you take that program, take that class, it's online or you can do it in person, and they tell you all about rain barrels and rain gardens and native plants. You can also get a voucher for a rain barrel or composter, or native plants. So that's another thing that you can do.
Great, and hopefully they'll be here soon. Still working on scheduling that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah?
I am Leah Atkins. I am at 3558 Greenview Drive. You know my husband Tim, he's at the table. I hope this room and people at home can feel the vibe change on this matter. In the past, our township went to war with native plant landscape, and so I can see why the defense is high on all sides. My sincere request is that in making these changes, we don't vilify natural landscapes in a way that we don't apply to unkept non-native landscapes. Of course, non-specific regulation opens up the possibility of misuse or abuse, but too specific legislation scares people off from something that's good for our land and people. One of the concerns is about keeping the plants in your own yard, but there are plenty of ways to keep your flowers in your own yard with intentionality. Most yards are grass, so even if those seeds spread, they're going to get mowed down and die off. Additionally, even if someone throws stuff out, it's still valuable to pollinators and it's still worthy. There is a changing tide of society that will not require mass education in the way that we worry needs to happen currently, I don't think. But I'm all for the education. I'm an educator by training, and we even need education on the difference of invasive versus aggressive plants. Because I think people conflate those. There are non-native invasive plants, and they're on the far other side of the spectrum from native plants. So I agree that we probably need to manage those. But anything worth doing can be difficult. I know the path is through, it's not over. We simply, I think, can educate maybe code enforcement on what turfgrass species look like. There are like 6 of them in Ohio. If you know what they look like, it's an easy way to say, well, that's turfgrass. You're growing turfgrass. It's probably not an intentional managed landscape here. And additionally, somebody said something about plant markers not being enough of a mark that is an intentionally planted space. But I would argue that that is still a cue for care. If you are going online and buying a plant marker and putting it in your landscape, that's still a cue for care. You're still showing intentionality. Whether you have a Franklin County pollinator pathway or a national pollinator pathway sign somewhere on your property, or you have a simple, on Amazon, you can get, leaving plants for the bees, or, just like a general one. Any of that, spending your own money to go and buy something like that is showing intentionality, as long as it's backed up with, these are native plants. So again, I think that if we just simply focus on the turfgrass species, if your yard is comprised of X amount of percentage of turfgrass species, there's your marker for this is either a managed landscape or it's not. So I think that's good. I like the vibe change. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything? Hi.
I'm Craig Toothman. I'm actually a Columbus resident. I'm the Xerces Society Ambassador for Central Ohio, and I'm currently president of Franklin County Pollinator Pathway. First of all, I'd like to commend all of you for trying to address the issue of natural landscaping. It's fraught with lots of misunderstandings. It's going to only get more complicated as time goes by, so thanks for what you're doing. I worked last year with the City of Columbus that amended their market weed ordinance. It's a good one, I think, to read as a reference, 709.03. Currently working with the City of Grandview Heights. They're trying to do the same thing you guys are doing. Many municipalities around the country are trying to figure out how to cope with these landscaping changes. So you're not alone. There are no perfect answers. Every community is different. People are experimenting with all different think it's something where you have to come up with the exact perfect answer, just keep chipping away at it. I did make a couple comments. If you'll bear with me, I'll just buzz through them here. I think it is important, as I think people have mentioned, that the vast majority of residents trying to create these pollinator habitats are very interested in compliance with municipal ordinances. The more understandable you can make the policy, the easier it'll be for them to comply. They're usually not interested in any type of confrontation, either with their neighbors nor with the city. I think safety is always pretty much a primary concern for people. Plantings need to be clear from within a vehicle at intersection of driveways, sidewalks, at streets, at alleys, and any other intersections. I think the city of Columbus has done actually a pretty good explanation of so-called vision triangles. It's in their code of ordinance. You can refer to chapter 3321, general site development standards, specifically ordinance number 3321.05, called vision triangles. It has some nice drawings in the documents, which I think help to really clarify what this somewhat confusing subject is, along with dimensions. So I think that's very helpful. An issue that's come up in multiple places are local fire departments and other emergency first responders need to be able to clearly see the address numerals on a property. There have been several violations where very tall native plants have basically obscured a front walkway. Fire department or someone comes up, they can't even really exactly quickly find out what house this even is. The main access route, typically the front walkway, needs to be clear of vegetation, and fire plugs ideally would have some degree of a circumference or something around them. You can't expect a fireman to try to hook up a hose in a big hurry if he's got coneflowers in the way. I think I was told that Glendon Township operates under the International Property Maintenance Code. Is that correct? Okay. I think if you explore their site, they have a number of good definitions that I think are potentially helpful to be used. One word that's come up a couple times this evening is the word cultivated, and I forget whether it was, I think it was Alice. That's become a tricky one. It previously meant either the care or raising of plants, but it's kind of commonly become associated now with cultivation and the actual tilling of soil in preparation for planting. That's fine in an agricultural setting where you're going to use all kinds of herbicides to control the weeds, but it's generally considered to be a bad practice, for example, in a residential area, because it just brings the seed bank up to the surface where it gets light and moisture, and all of a sudden you got millions and millions of weeds. So cultivation is a good word to maybe consider trying to remove from your language. Try to keep subjective words maybe out of it. As you know, things like appropriate, adequate, good, bad, ugly can mean one thing to one person and something else to someone else. I think it's important to remember that this is a visual cultural issue. It's not a scientific one. All of us have had literally several centuries of learning about what a properly maintained property looks like. I certainly grew up like everybody else mowing my grass twice a week. If you had a dandelion in your yard, it was a crime. So I think that the visual appearance of the plants is usually the big complaint, particularly in late fall and winter. In order to provide a food source for birds, we tend to encourage leaving the seed heads intact over the winter. This and then leaves the stalks very tall. The plants turn brown, and all of a sudden it's pretty hard to tell a native garden from a weed. One of these the ways to mitigate these complaints can include what were mentioned, I think, a minute ago, possibly by Leah, signs of intentionality. It can be signs, pathway borders, mowed setbacks in traditional lawn spaces, anything that provides a quickly obvious visual clue to anyone going by that this was done on purpose. This isn't a situation of neglect. This is an intentional style of gardening. There is a big challenge about what to do with publicly owned spaces between sidewalks and curb, so-called curb lawns or tree lawns or hell strip. I can share with you that no municipality that I've been in communication with has really figured out a perfect way to deal with that. People want to plant in them. The best path forward, I think, that's been promoted is that trying to educate people that it's not their land, that there are priorities of access to that property from the city and utilities and blah, 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 all the way down, and the resident is at the bottom of the list. So if you want to plant native plants there, you may, but be prepared. It's not like the city's going to come in and be overly concerned with trying to replace them if they have to tear up that space. That's kind of the risk that you take as a private citizen planting in those areas. The last thing I would say was to the municipality, the trustees, is to recognize opportunities for leadership at the governmental level. Plantings of native plants within public areas of the township can be a really powerful educational tool. You can make sure you're using native trees when you work on forest tree canopies. A great example, the city of Columbus tomorrow, the city council has voted to plant native plants at City Hall. And, you know, people are doing this kind of stuff. And I think that's probably about enough. Thanks for your time. Oh, one last thing. Here is, somebody mentioned signs. I'm with Pollinator Partnership. This is our signs, 12-inch circle in diameter. We usually mount it on a 3-foot tall green stake that comes from Lowe's. Ends up being about 2 feet off the ground. But Homegrown National Park has them, National Wildlife Federation, Xerces Society. There are millions of signs out. I do think having a sign restriction within reason would, again, make it easier for people to comply when they want to do the right thing. Thanks a lot.
I think signs will also help the people who are not trying to be native gardeners understand what it is.
Something's happening here.
Yeah, and I just want to, because Craig mentioned what Columbus is about to do, planting native flowers at City Hall. We're about to do that right over here. Took down some invasive Bradford pears, and Pat's been looking into what we're going to be planting there.
I have a resident sending me a whole plan. Let's see what she wants.
Didn't work. She probably had to take my daughter away.
So, yes, we also took out those bushes that had been overgrown and dying on the bottom and so forth. And Eric and I and the guys, we just one day took them out, took the trees out. We did it all internally, so there's no cost to anybody other than us. And we're reaching out to people here and a couple people I know at Oakland Nursery and saying, what's the best stuff to put in there? And we'll work on that.
And remember, ODNR and Franklin County Soil and Water will come out.
They're the ones that told us those trees were bad.
Yeah. You've been trying.
All right. We have somebody?
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah,
hi.
right.
Hello, thank you for doing this.
Did you say that first word? The first word you said, you say it a little louder so it's on here. The free word.
Well, first, hi, I'm David Rosen. Friends of Allen Creek Contributaries, AKA FACT, longtime board member, and I won't go into all my other credentials, but thank you everybody for the great input and the changes that I'm seeing, and I echo the sentiments of the fellow earlier speakers, Ron and Joe and Alice and Leah and everything, Craig. City of Columbus, just to remind you, very, very simple. I mean, it was a half a page. And everything else they referred to other existing code. So don't try to reinvent the wheel if you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And again, I wrote down here the word small. Well, what does small mean? Mowed strips. What's a strip? okay, you got 8 inches as a height. In my opinion, that's too short for anything. I put 12 inches. Oh, City of Columbus has 12 inches just for anything. Then you get into what's a native, what's not native, what's noxious and what's not noxious. So yeah, you have your reference documents. Be sure to do that, and the code enforcement people are gonna have to figure it out and get smarter to go, oh yeah, that's crabgrass or dandelion, yeah, native. Administrative Myers and one of the trustees have said, I heard them, we've received many complaints. I'm curious, has that been documented? For the record, what is many? I don't know whether that's considered in London Township hundreds or a dozen, or I don't know what that is.
Dozens and dozens every spring and summer. And we do document it in the
And
software.
those are the documented, because I'll get calls from people on my personal call, or they'll stop by my office, email me personally, DM.
Yeah, anything that is, again, not subjective, but that's written down, it would be great. I mean, to say we've had 150 complaints or something like that.
Yes. It will be, or has historically been reported out on, like, these are the complaints that come through.
We have, correct. We've been putting it in the newsletter and different things that go out, what's going on in code enforcement and so forth, open cases and things like that.
Great, great, great. Other miscellaneous things I wrote down. There's currently another big trend is we're gonna buy your invasive plants. New Albany started it, they have the money. Now other communities, I think Westville's doing it as well, to bring in your Callery Bradford pear trees, and we'll give you some money or a rebate for a new tree to replace that. It was mentioned also, and you have literature already out there, the Franklin Soil Water Conservation District Community Backyards Program. I did testify to that fact last June, that's a program that's free, and they, not only is it free, it's one of the other speakers indicated, they will give you money by attending that. In fact, is one of the educators to conduct those workshops. There's several nonprofit organizations that Franklin Soil Water has hired us to then go out and do these backyard programs. Way back when, we were here doing rain barrels, way back when, and we were actually handing people out rain barrels at the end of the session. So it'd be great to have London Township get part of that again, if you can get it on the schedule, because it's become very, very popular. And free, getting back to free, I and other groups have been offered leftover trees from Franklin Soil Water Conservation District coming up soon. Also, the Green Columbus for Earth Month, which we're into. Happy Earth Month. Thank every day though, and Earth Day. Has also a program where they will give away to organizations in batches of 50 bare root seedling trees and bushes and perennials and stuff like that. I'm not quite sure where the London Township falls in with that program, but I know even Metro Parks and other park districts takes advantage of that free offering. They're handing them out this month later on, but you have to register before this. But I'll be glad to whisper or talk to the appropriate people or let you know about those free things that are out there. And thanks to the taxpayers that support those programs. Just image aesthetics, it's all about education. One person's green is another person's ungreen. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun, but it'll look pretty. Thank you very much for the opportunity. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Carolyn's beating you up here, Tony.
I have to go. Carolyn Cordray, 3734 Caracas Drive. My question, actually concern, is more administrative. We're a township. We're ruled differently. We have a separate set of rules, and I want to be sure that we're not all swayed by some of the conversations we've heard about what Columbus does, what Westerville does.
we have, we follow Franklin County, we have township resolutions, we have home rule resolutions, we have our own zoning code. That makes us different. So if, well, I'm the chairperson for the zoning commission, and I have been ever since its inception. We did work on our own zoning code, and I've been told multiple times, this does not fall under zoning, it falls under home rule, and it would be written as a home rule resolution. My question would be, in the event we get in trustees who want to rescind home rule, what happens then?
So, a couple of things. One, there's a difference between rescinding Blendon Township as a limited home rule form of government. Basically, we're just going back to a statutory township. That's something that the trustees can't do unilaterally.
Right.
There's a difference between that and, say, resolutions or restrictions that are adopted as a limited home rule resolution. Items that are adopted as a limited home rule resolution can be amended and or rescinded by the trustees. So, for example, your property maintenance code was adopted under your limited home rule form of government. You've got a variety of limited home rule resolutions. The board could review those, and if they believe that maybe things have changed, or from a policy perspective, it doesn't meet the elected officials don't agree with those policy decisions. The board, future board, could amend or rescind whatever form this takes.
Okay. That was the answer I was looking for, the clarification, and I think it's important that everybody needs to see the big picture. That, you know, I mean, it's all fine and dandy, you know, what we like today and what we choose to put in the home rule today, but it could easily be put on the ballot again by a trustee, a future trustee. So that makes us different. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Hi, Tony Baker, 2550 Clarendon Road. Thank you for holding this tonight and for the work on this. Complaints about overgrown lawns or unmaintained land has come up a bunch of times. And it's always like said of like mystery, people are just making these calls. I'm one of the people who have, reported folks with high grass and, things like that. And, last year with the anonymous reporting thing made it a lot easier. I also support the ability to grow things other than grass in your front yard. So I think this is a step in the right direction. And I say all that, that like I could tell the difference between someone trying to grow flowers and different plants and someone not mowing your lawn. And so like, to me in the audience, it feels, like whenever complaints get talked about, it's like, boy, if we let people grow something other than grass in their front yard, we're gonna, people are too dumb to notice, and they're just gonna call, and stop. And I don't think that's the case, but if it is, whatever you pass, if you're able to pass something, you could always tweak it in the future. And from what we learn, what people are actually doing and or not doing, as the case may be. So, thank you for moving this along. Thank you for doing it before. People start wanting to plant in their yard. And that makes a big difference too.
Hey, Tony, real quick, I don't think anybody thinks people can't tell the difference or dumb, but it's not written out as far as our ability to go out and talk to the people about that.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that are truly doing this are within what we have today. So without this, the only path we have is the nuisance resolution and complaint system. But with this, then there is that delineation. So I don't want you to think that we're that we just don't have this in order to not enforce it. So that's, I mean, am I making sense there?
Yeah.
We only have, what we have today is what we have to enforce. When this comes into play, then with registration and things they talked about, it's easy for us to say no and yes.
Yeah, to that point, actually, that's the entire, not the entire reason, but that is a very large reason that Columbus did what they did. Because there was a constant battle with code enforcement and what is or is not. So by them laying out, it literally is a half page. I mean, it's 3 paragraphs long. Now they have more references to codes. They have a much more robust code program. So I think there is some sort of a combination that would take place. So this does, some of those items. But that's the reason. It's just that they could not say, oh, well, you can get away with this without having any sort of teeth to say it follows this portion of the code. So I think that is what we're doing here. That's that delineation. That's what we're working toward anyway.
Yeah. Well, and also to point on educating neighbors and, like the township educating people on like what is something we can do versus not do, or, all that. I got involved with you guys and with the park advisory committee, kind of out in basic speakeasy and out of the parks, and learned all about what is that tree that and I looked at my back and my honeysuckle on like the corner of the lot, so I saw my neighbor. I was like, hey, there's honeysuckle back there, and it turned out like my neighbor likes that plant, and I had offered to like cut it out, rip it out, and they were like, no, I like that plant. So I was like, okay, that's your land, and I'll just cut it when it comes on my land, and be a good neighbor. Well, thanks for your time.
I agree with what he said. Everything's honeysuckle for me now. I see it everywhere. But I just wanted to thank everybody for this. And also, there was so much information. So many people you mentioned something. A lot of people came up here and said these different websites. And is there going to be something online that we can reference from this meeting, like there is now? That's it.
We'll create minutes. The recording will be out there. And we'll also create minutes from this, and they're pretty verbatim almost.
Okay.
So we'll create that as well. And I know Eric's a note taker. He's taking notes. I've taken notes, so we'll do some summary stuff as well.
So if I emailed you, could you you're gonna probably create this. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
we'll
Because you're looking for not just minutes, so you're looking for, hey, these are
Yeah,
all these
links.
resources in one place. So many people mentioned so many
Facebook
different
pages, the
Facebook
website.
pages, websites, different groups that you could go and join their free sessions, all of that stuff. And all this.
Back when we started this in 2024, I had given you some links, and I think you posted them back there. Yeah. And you might like these articles talking about need to border and show sense of purpose and order, neighbor-friendly wildlife gardening, website on how to start planting native and resource to help. I had like 6 or 7 that I gave him because we were trying to promote it. And this all came about with Ron and Alice's yard. And when we realized very quickly that they were trying to create something, but our code didn't allow them to do that. That's where all of this started. And we tried.
All of that stuff, yeah, I want to see all of the things. I want to attend all the things. I want my yard to look like April's and Pam's and Alice's. But I have no idea where to begin, so.
Educate.
Yes, educate. Take some of the seeds up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one packet, but I was going to take more. Nobody else wanted.
No one else.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Cassidy. I was late, so I may have missed this. First question is, I heard a list of noxious weeds referenced. Is that going to be linked somewhere or a list just so that?
Absolutely. And there's also some handouts up there too.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Because I will admit I'm a little more let nature do its thing, let it run wild than a managed landscape kind of gal. So is there something in this, whatever you're calling it, that will account for that, or is this
something that, like, if I do want my land to be, you know, pollinator friendly, it has to be like a circle, you know, like something very specific that's planned out rather than, hey, let's just let nature.
It sounds like you probably didn't grab the
I did
draft
not,
proposal.
no.
It kind of touches on that, because yeah, I mean, you do have to have some, you know, markings, but it can just be a mowed strip, is what we're looking at right now. I can't say that this is what we're necessarily gonna go with, but so far, everybody's been in agreement that it's enough, so. But yeah, but you could do your whole yard, your backyard, your side yard, yeah, and just as long as it is marked somehow. Optional signage, optional classes, all the things, yeah.
Well, yeah, sorry about that. I figured there was something back there, but I was late.
Yeah, no, no problem, yeah.
Along those lines,
Oh.
when we started this the first time, we spoke with Police Chief Belford and Chief Miller, because there were some items that we had to be aware of, just as one of the gentlemen speaking mentioned. Yeah, fire codes and police codes. And the other thing we ran into when we met at Ron and Alice's house with Ohio Department of Natural Resources, you don't experience it on this side of Sunbury Road, but on that side, we have waste treatment systems. And you have to keep invasive plants that will grow, I think it was more than 6 inches away from a waste treatment system, or it could do permanent damage.
Okay.
So there's a lot of that we took into account as well.
So maybe even just adding that here.
We had
Yeah,
that in the
add that.
original one, so maybe taking pieces and parts from that and adding it to
So,
the new item.
if I may, that would kind of go toward what this process looks like, Trustee Zobel. Even if the trustees all shook their head yes and loved this proposal, there's still a process, because this is a home rule resolution. So, and you can tell me when I'm wrong, when I get moving. But, the first thing it would do is once the trustees and all of us come to the decision that this is the draft, after it's drafted, there will be a meeting. It's called the first reading of the home rule resolution. The home rule resolution will be read as it is presented, and we would do just what we just did. People would be able to comment, they would have seen it first, we don't like this, we like that, and the trustees would take all that information, go back, either change things, don't change things, what have you. We would schedule a second reading of the home rule resolution. At the second reading of the home rule resolution, the newest draft will be read, whatever that draft might be, and then folks in the audience would again have the opportunity to speak to that. When that was done, the trustees have a decision that night. They could motion to pass the home rule resolution, or they could go back to the drawing board again and come back and pass it at a later date. So there is some steps involved that we'll be adding, subtracting, and doing things with. So I didn't want everybody to think that they were gonna walk out today and this is it. This is the initial rough draft we talked about, and the ideas you're giving, and fire and police and the different things, we can start to look at that as well. So just wanted to outline that process a little bit. No.
And the, obviously, tonight is a special meeting. The past hearing on, natural landscaping, that was at a special meeting. What Pat described, the board could have a special meeting, or you could incorporate the reading, of the limited home rule resolution into one of your regular meetings. So just something to keep in mind in terms of when and how and all that.
And don't forget, Pat, to get in touch with Franklin County Board of Health for well and septic requirements.
Yeah. Put it down.
Anybody else want to speak?
Just real quick. Steve Hostetter, 4135 Blue Bonnet Court. Pat answered one of my questions, which was gonna be how we'll move forward if this didn't happen. And I appreciate y'all's courage to bring this back up, because, a lot of concerns were brought up last time on both sides. So, one of my concerns was what would happen with Alice's place if we don't come up with something. And that's my fear, is that people will be restricted. They'll have to charge, they'll have to have her mow it down. I don't think anybody wants that. And I do believe that the people who want to do this want to beautify things, want to do things the right way. Maybe not the right way, a good way. They want to do beneficial things for the environment and for the community. So one of the things I don't know, since I came in late too, I don't know, in last time, was there any restriction as far as backyards? If you've got a privacy fence, a 6-foot privacy fence, is it line of sight? Or are there gonna be restrictions for behind that fence line, or is it just what can be viewed from the street or the
I
sidewalk?
think there were borders, if I remember correctly. Do you remember, Eric?
There were some borders in the
Yeah, I
first
think
one,
there
but it
were
didn't
some
speak
borders.
to 6 foot, it didn't speak to 6 foot privacy fences that code enforcement can't see from the road. What we can't see from the road, we can't enforce.
So, yeah, that was one thing that, with the previous policy or draft, that's something y'all might want to add in there if there's going to be something like that. Somebody's got a chain link fence and you can see it from the road or the sidewalk, then that might be something else. But if there's privacy, maybe just put a little clause in there, something to let people know what they can and can't do on either side of that fence. But just a thought.
Ward, if I can, give you some thoughts on, because that is a fair comment, with code enforcement, again, if they can see it from the right of way, then they can enforce. But I think one of the common theme has been complaints. And so if a neighbor were to complain about their neighbor's backyard and say, look, it looks like they're just growing weeds and all that sort of thing, code enforcement, with the neighbor's permission, can go and basically look over the fence into their neighbor's yard. And so an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It may be worthwhile to spell out that if you're planning on having a natural landscape in your backyard, probably a good idea to register as well to prevent a situation, again, prevent an enforcement situation in a backyard if a neighbor doesn't understand or gets upset, that type of thing. Just something to keep in mind.
Does it take care of it by the first part or all of the yard? And also, because there has to be registration, and in the registration, you're telling approximately where it is, would that take care of that?
I believe so, but just so that way, because I think the question was, if, or I think part of the question was, does this only cover the front yard?
Right.
And so.
Just to be more specific that
Correct.
it covers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've got to be careful about all of yard, because we still have right-of-ways that we have to be able to have access to and easements. And I think we addressed that in the original, so maybe just kind of taking pieces and parts from the original and adding onto this.
Yeah, and still keeping it as simple as possible. Yes, absolutely. Anybody else have anything tonight?
It just occurred to me when we started talking about neighbors. Linda Adams, 5500 Buenos Aires. Just kind of a note is how maybe the township needs to figure out in advance how it handles a neighbor who decides they don't like it and spray it.
I think that's a civic lawsuit. Yeah, that's a civil case.
Just
I hope you have not experienced that.
Not here.
Okay.
But I have heard of people doing that.
Yes. So, just a quick note.
Thank you. Do we have anything else? Yes, please.
My name's John LaPerry. I live in Yuba Ridge, and over about 16 years, and my wife probably lived in Yuba Ridge before I did, about 15 more years. And she sees, and I have nothing against residents and homeowners making their yard pretty and planting flowers. My biggest thing is, the question I have is, like last year, we talked about not allowed to have it, can't do it, you have to cut them down, no more. They went and got a lawyer, they drafted up paperwork to try to get what's that called, a HOA. Now, are we trying to get an HOA to tell us what to do and give the zoning guy, the code enforcer, which he can't even code enforce what they got now, here's something else to go to try to code enforce, how high your flowers are, how big they are, how close they are to the sidewalk, this and that. I like flowers and it's pretty, but I think people ought to do their own. You don't pay my taxes. I'm gonna take care of my yard the way I want to. And the zoning guy that goes around, whoever it is, don't do what he needs to do, because I guess renters have what's called managed natural landscape exempt, because their grass sure is over 8 inches high. Now, I'm not gonna talk about grass, but we spent all this money our taxpaying money, which I don't see nothing happening, okay? And I want to know how much did we spend on this lawyer? That's why we got rid of those two women that were up there and they got voted out, because they wanted to tell us what to do and try to get a HOA. Now, that's the thing I was worried about. And Pat, you're the one that's supposed to, do you finalize and authorize who, how much money goes where? Or do you see it?
I report,
Somebody had to see-
I report to these people right here.
Somebody had to see where that money went to get a lawyer and get that drafted up. Where did that go? Where happened to all that? Now that got stopped. Now you're saying it's okay to plant flowers, but we're gonna have a little rule and a little law about it. So you're gonna have to do it correctly, because if you don't, we're gonna come over there and talk to you. And if you don't fix it, you're gonna get rode up, or gonna have to dig it up, or you're not taking care of it correctly. And my neighbor thinks he lives in Deerfield. He mows his yard every other day, okay? So if I plant my flowers like I've seen the pretty pictures up there on the sidewalk and everything, and all these little seeds blow over there, I know he's getting already mad about my daffodils and the little, dandelions all blowing in his yard, because he's getting it. Well, what am I gonna do? I'm getting it from them. I get branches from the tree from other people. I spend $600 to cut my tree, so the black walnuts don't fall in the neighbor's yard and me to have an issue later on. I don't wanna hear that. But there's just no answers, nothing's getting new, and I don't know who you are, because you don't have no nameplate there. I know I have not been to some of these lately, because it's just really a waste, you don't get answers. But nobody's gonna tell me what I can do in my yard, because you don't pay my taxes. You got a problem, and if you're the code enforcer guy, you get somebody to ride around with you. I walk my dog probably 2 miles every day. I know, April, you see me in the woods. I see more than what everybody probably looks at, because I'm not nosy, but I'm nosy, okay? And you guys walked around and spray painted little orange things on the sidewalk. The ones that are real bad, that are terrible, nobody did anything to them. And now the little orange spots are about gone. So what are we gonna have to do now? Pay to have somebody come out there and remark them? There's yellow flags, blue flags, green flags, red flags in these people's yards going up their hill. Who the hell knows what they're there for? They're not doing anything. Half of them will bloat on the floor. Why are they there? If it was in my yard and they put them there, they're getting mowed over, because nobody's finishing nothing. Sidewalks, nobody takes care of that. Where's our taxpayers' money going? I pay too much taxes to see nothing, nothing. I'm talking about the park. Pat, you know, my wife emails you, you put a flag down there, you put the porta potties up. I don't know what else you complain about, the tables down there, you can't do like this. You cut your hand because the paint's all peeling.
John, I hate to cut you off, but we're starting to run out of
I
time with the
know,
fight, so
I
get
will
with me
get-
afterwards, tell me what you need to, you got some more, all right?
All right.
All right,
Thank
thank you. All right, we have anybody else tonight? Okay, all right, any other comments, anything up here?
No, thank you.
We are there, all right, thank you all very much for being here tonight, this was productive, and I move to adjourn this meeting at 6:48 PM. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Trustee Atkins.
Yes.
Trustee Zobel.
Yes.
Trustee C. Malcolm.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned, thank you again for coming.